Welcome to Fantasy NASCAR Podcast, episode 498. Today, we're going to talk about crew chiefs in the Cup Series. This podcast might work. It might be useful. It might be a total disaster. I don't know for sure what to tell you, but guess what? At any time, you can bail out. You can abort. What I am doing, I thought about building a spreadsheet to try to bring in all this different data, and what I realized was that the spreadsheet is not really going to work any better than what Racing Reference already has. And really what I'd need to do, more so than just building a spreadsheet, is just become familiar, remind myself, recall who these crew chiefs are, who they were, where they've been, who they've worked with, and just forget about creating some tool that's going to make my life easier and just decide to do the work. So here I am putting in the time to do the research, really for myself. This is to help myself learn, and it may be a boring podcast. It may be a dull podcast. I will try to do my best to talk out loud so you can follow along if you're listening on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. If you are on those audio formats, as always, maybe it would be better or behoove you to go to my YouTube page and watch the video version. Well, you're driving a car. I get it. That's fine. I will do my best to explain it through the audio, what I am looking at. Please subscribe to the podcast in all formats and on YouTube and like it. You guys are doing a great job liking the YouTube videos. Let's keep it up. Keep hitting the like button. I appreciate it. It really is helping push us towards 100,000 downloads. We're going to be there by the end of the month, which is unbelievable for an independent podcast. With the only support that I have is you. The only promotion that this Fantasy NASCAR podcast has is you. That is it. Word of mouth. No big giant organization promoting, helping, greasing the wheels, advertising, forcing their subs to promote it, forcing their employees to promote it. It's just you. So I say right here, as we start 498, thank you as always. And if you want to do a little bit more, remember you can go to racefortheprize.com. That's the hub where you can find all kinds of fantasy NASCAR information, links to my YouTube page, links to the podcast, links to the free articles that I've been doing at DraftKings for the last 6, 7, 8 years, whatever number it is now. A link to Brandon Cruz's live streams, a link to my crazy, weird, exciting, entertaining, or boring or frightening blog, theconstrainedvision.com, and all my other websites that I run. But the big one is Brandon Cruz's Patreon, which is our Patreon, I guess. And that is at patreon.com/BrandonCruzDFS, patreon.com/BrandonCruzDFS. If this video helps you, please hit a like. If this video on Crew Chiefs helps you, please leave a comment. If you think that there's more good things to come, then maybe consider signing up and supporting the content that he creates and the content that I create. So what we are going to do for this podcast is I've got the driver entry list for Fontana. Now you're saying, oh, Fontana, if you're watching this podcast down the road, don't worry. That doesn't matter. The entry lists don't really change. I'm just using this as the base so I know who is a crew chief for a specific driver. Then I'm going to go through that crew chief's history and just talk out loud, maybe see if I can find something significant. Maybe I'm just reminding myself of something. Maybe something will click with you as you listen that doesn't click with me. Either way, I'm going to do my best to go through this entry list. Again, if this is the middle of summer and you're like, Fontana, I don't want it. The entry list is the same. This is just what we're using to navigate to specific crew chiefs. We will start at the top with the number 1 car of Ross Chastain, who is now at Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse Racing has expanded to 2 cars. They have purchased the CGR equipment. So now Chastain, who is playing musical chairs every season, every series, it's become quite hard to keep track of him. And I can't imagine that this is, obviously it's a benefit to him to keep getting rides and to stay in decent equipment. But for his development, for him to improve, changing series constantly, not always, it's every year. Now, yes, this is much better than being at JD Motorsports in the Xfinity series. Absolutely, especially when he was unsponsored for a lot of those races. But changing crew chiefs every season, changing cars every season, now changing the package of these cars every single season. It's not, I just can't see the career trajectory of Ross Chastain to be going in the right direction. If he can stay at Trackhouse for several years and Trackhouse can keep getting funding for several more seasons and are really trying to win and are really trying to invest as opposed to just trying to party at tracks, and this is more than so, is this an investment for winning, or is this an investment for an investment or a diversification or a tax write-off? I'm not completely certain. I'm not sold one way or the other just yet. If gun to my head, if I had to pick, what I see Trackhouse as is more of a diversification from investors, as opposed to I'm willing to bankrupt my main company. I'm willing to bankrupt my family and life savings just so I can go out there and chase wins, like we see with Hendrick, who will just spin, and Joe Gibbs Racing, which for the most part seems like they'll just spin. SHR seems to be a little bit more frugal. Penske spins pretty strongly, but he's spinning pretty strongly and heavily across several different motorsports. I don't know where Trackhouse stands. A lot of things just scare me with it. All right, well, let's look at Phil Surgeon. Casa del Sol Tequila, the sponsor. As long as it's, you got to go with 100% agave, I have been told, according to Marc Sisson. You got to make sure that I'll recommend. Now, actually, Marc Sisson will tell you just don't drink at all, but if you have to drink, then you're going to want to make sure it's pure agave. And it is one of the cleaner alcohols. His science shows that most of the problem with people getting hangovers and alcohol is, beer has all kinds of fillers and crap in it. A lot of the stuff you drink, it's just not clear alcohol. And so obviously liquor, that's, the finest grade or quality, is going to process by the body better. And alcohol alone, without sugars and food and pizza that you eat along with it, is going to be processed by the liver faster and better and more clean by your body. But on top of that, agave is a natural plant. It's not wheat. And so the body can break it down better. Anyway, long story short, you want your tequila to be, I think, 100% agave? I can't remember. It's got to be really high agave count. Don't drink the cheap stuff. Long story short, TLDR. And don't put a bunch of crap in it. The reason why people love tequilas or love margaritas, it's not because they love tequila, although they tell themselves that. And it's not because, it's a festive drink. The reason you love a margarita, partially the ice, I'm sure helps, but the reason that people love margarita, it's loaded with sugar. It's the sugar, folks. That's what really is hitting your taste buds and making you pound the margaritas, and then your body can't process it, and that's why you feel really, really bad the next day. It's not necessarily the tequila that has ruined the night before you and your next day. It was the 15 pounds of sugar, and that was the reason why you liked the drink. Anyway, Phil, let's look up Phil. This podcast's off to a great start, isn't it? The surgeon who will be operating on you after you've had too many tequilas and removing your liver and replacing it with a bionic liver. How fun would that be? A bionic liver. All right, Phil Surgeon is not someone that is familiar to me, and I'm obviously not doing a good job of navigating so far, but I will get better. All right, Phil Surgeon, what do we know about him? 2016, he did one cup race for Kyle Larson. They got top 5. 2020, he did 16 races for Matt Kenseth. That was where Kyle Larson got fired for you-know-what, and Kenseth takes over, and at Chip Ganassi gets 0 top 10s and has an average finish of 22nd, which I always point to, showing, look what Larson was doing in that equipment. You put Kenseth in that equipment, who's a very good driver. Sure, his best days were behind him, but he was no slouch. And yeah, not having practice definitely did not help Kenseth, and he also probably hated the racing package, but still, what Kyle Larson was getting out of those cars, and I said this going into last season, I'd always said this, that the equipment was holding him back, and I was very bullish on Kyle Larson once he got into good equipment at Hendrick, and well, we saw how all that played out. And he didn't really have to be a genius. You just had to, the only people that got the Kyle Larson thing wrong were just the haters, the people that were just hating on Kyle Larson. Any normal NASCAR fan, any legitimate, rational, non-biased NASCAR fan. This isn't a dig on Cruz, but Cruz is just blind, and he'll admit this, blindly biased to hate Larson, and will try to come up with any reason not to like him. And that one blew up in his face, and he'll own it. Larson, incredibly talented. You don't win all those dirt races. Oh, it's the equipment. Sure, his dirt racing equipment helped, but you don't win that many races. Tony Stewart has really good equipment, is a really good dirt racer, and it never went on a streak like Larson went on. Anyway, that's another rant. So here is the surgeon, then takes over in 2021.
Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry, I'm having...
2021 with Chastain, 3 top 5s. Not a very good season. They're back again this year. Where did they get the top 5s at, though? I believe they were in low downforce, high horsepower races, which is a good sign moving into the season. I think it's Nashville, which intermediate track, low horsepower, high downforce, or high horsepower, low downforce. That's a good sign. Let's see. Where were they? That's not what I wanted to click on. I needed to click on the number here. And we want to look at the top 5s and the top 10s. And we will just sort it by... Can I sort it that way? No, I can't. Top 10 there. That's not going to help us. So 4th at Coda, that was an absolute mess. That's not going to help us. 7th at Sonoma, I don't think that really helps us that much either, given the way that they do the stage racing and the road coursing, and you just kind of go out there and hold position. The 2nd at Nashville is exciting. There's a lot of speed there. He looked pretty good throughout that entire race, if I recall, but that is just one race. Another good road race at Road America. I'm not really crazy about that, but they did have a good setup here at Loudon. Another good road race for Ross Chastain. 3rd at Darlington. That's impressive. 7th at Richmond. So Phil Surgeon seems to have set up some pretty good high horsepower, 750 package, low downforce. Now, obviously, we're not going to have as much high horsepower, and the downforce is going to be a little bit more. We're meeting in the middle, but still could be a good season. We'll see. We don't have a giant sample size for Phil Surgeon, but in his one full season here as a crew chief for Chip Ganassi Racing, that was pretty good. And it happens when you get the package changes. Now, they did have high horsepower, low downforce here. I don't know how many of those races. Let's see. In the high horsepower, low downforce 2020 races, what did Kenseth do? Let's see. 16th at Bristol. That's not the right package. Yeah, I don't know. Does anything stand out here? Nothing really stands out. No real point for me to belabor that. I think we got enough information on Phil Surgeon. If we go that deep into all these guys, we'll never get through everybody. So Phil Surgeon, Ross Chastain, keep him on your list. Austin Cindric in the 2 now. His crew chief is going to be Jeremy Bullins. Bullins has bounced around several times over last season. Bullins and Blaney were together, and they did a whole lot of nothing for a while. Got a couple wins, I think, towards the end. Then Bullins went with Keselowski, and they got a couple wins last season. Now Bullins with Cindric. Changing crew chiefs often, I don't think that that's a good idea. Moving up is obviously going to have some struggle, even though moving from the Xfinity series to this package, you could theoretically argue or have a hypothesis that Cindric is not at a disadvantage. And maybe the Cup Series drivers who've been running intermediate track races in the 550 package may be at a disadvantage, whereas Cindric was running a high horsepower, low downforce package at intermediate tracks in previous seasons. So he may not be at a disadvantage. He may be good to go. We'll see. He's also got that win in the bank. So one of the things that you talk about with a rookie is that maybe he's going to be a little less aggressive and careful in point racing. Cindric's got the win in the bank. That means he can be aggressive. He's really got nothing to lose. One of the things that often holds a rookie back is their passivity, their reluctance to really push it and to dice it up with the top teams. He doesn't have an excuse, and we already know Cindric can and will dice it up and become aggressive. We saw earlier, even when he was still new in the Xfinity series, he was out there dicing it up. But we definitely saw him be very aggressive in 2020 and really push the issue. I mean, he was wrecking a lot in 2019. He wrecked a lot in 2020, but he still got wins. He was also pretty, tough in 2021. I said he should have been in the Cup Series last season, and I think it looks like he should have been in the Cup Series last season, especially given all of the road courses. It's crazy to think that he has a chance at winning the championship, but if you can make the bet, let me see what the odds are on him. You have to remember, this series is loaded with road courses, and even if he doesn't win those road courses, he's going to accumulate points, maybe even stage win points, but he's going to get a significant amount of points in those races, and then he's not going to be terrible at the intermediate tracks. He's not going to be terrible at the short tracks. He's going to build up a bank worth of points. He gets into the playoffs, you've got some road course races, it's not inconceivable. And then by the time we get to Phoenix, he has won at Phoenix before. Yeah, that's going to be a daunting task. But, if you asked me before Daytona 500, will Austin Cindric win the championship? I would say, yeah, right, get out of here. But now he's got the win. He's in the playoffs. He's got all these road courses. He just needs to be steady Eddie scoring points throughout the season, and that will pretty much launch him into the top 12 in the playoffs without question. And maybe he's able to accumulate enough that he can easily slide into the top 8. And then from there, all bets are off. You've got a long shot bet who is now into almost the final round. It's worth considering. What are his odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook to win? Austin Cindric to win the championship is sitting at, plus 1,800. I would want a longer shot. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10th best odds. So I think we might have missed the boat on that. I mean, it is a Penske car. It is the number 2 car. This is not like a nobody situation. And although I said he should have been in the Cup Series last season, Penske was probably wise to give him that extra season in the Xfinity Series to build him up and get him ready. One of the knocks always on William Byron was they rushed him up one season too fast. Daniel Suarez, it wasn't his choice. They had to move him up because Carl Edwards exited out. We've seen this happen where drivers have been pushed up too fast for whatever reason. It seems like they played it correct with Cindric. So maybe he's ready. Maybe he's going to go on an absolute tear. We will see. Jeremy Bolins as a crew chief. Got to win, a couple wins here. I think most of these are, let's just look at his specific wins because I believe those Pocono and then plate track wins, if I'm correct. Pocono, the Roval win where Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex Jr. wreck each other at the end. There's a plate track win. Then Bolins moves over and wins the Charlotte Coca-Cola 600 with Brad Keselowski. Chase Elliott was in control during that entire race. This was COVID. And Brad Keselowski gambles on pit road, gets a good restart at the end, wins the race. Still, top 5 car, but that wasn't Brad Keselowski's race to win. You'll see here, he only led 21 laps in that race. Either way, made the right decisions, and that was a crew chief win, if I remember correctly. Jeremy Bolins gambling on pit road gets Brad Keselowski that win. Which, take note of that. If Jeremy Bolin, now I'm realizing right now, there is no way that this podcast is going to be a one-parter. So $4.99 is going to be crew chief. We might have 500 end up being crew chief talk as well. But these are podcasts that you can watch down the road, go back over, and help yourself out with. Going back to Jeremy Bolins. Bolins, only 21 laps led there. He is the key to this. I mean, this is the prime. This is the gym. This is one of the crown gems of NASCAR, part of their Triple Crown or Grand Slam, the Coca-Cola 600 Memorial Day. That was a weird one. But that big-time win, yes, he built a car that could compete. But he also made the right strategy and gambles. Now, think of Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric has the win in the bank. They can gamble. They can be aggressive. And we have a crew chief here in Jeremy Bolins who has already demonstrated that he is a gambler. Austin Cindric is going to be someone that you definitely should not. I mean, you can't write off the number 2 car. You can't write off a Penske car. Definitely keep your eyes on Cindric and Jeremy Bolins this season. Win here at Bristol. He led early, and then he comes back and wins late when there's madness at the track. A lot of laps led here in 2020 at Loudon. You'll remember that was a super fast, amazing car. Jeremy Bolins was on fire in terms of setting up the high horsepower, low downforce, no practice. That chassis was super fast. It won at Bristol. It won at New Hampshire. Now, I'm not sure if it was, they might have used it at Phoenix before, but that same chassis they took from New Hampshire, they took it to Richmond, and then they used that car. A lot of the other teams for the championship race that season in 2020 repurposed cars and built cars specifically for, Chase Elliott had a car built specifically for the championship race. I believe Denny Hamlin also had a car built specifically for the championship race. Penske, under Bollins and Keselowski's guidance, decided no, this hot rod won at Loudon, flat short track. This thing won at Richmond and led a lot of laps, short flat track. We're taking it to Phoenix and we're going to win. And they could have won at Phoenix. Should, not even should have won at Phoenix, but they were absolutely terrible on pit road in that race, and it cost Keselowski the 2020 championship. Bollins built a fast car. The pit crew was slow. Chase Elliott executed all day. Chase Elliott won that race. Get you excited about Bollins. And then they didn't do anything last year. It was Keselowski's last season. We'll look a little bit more at what they did last year for Keselowski here in a second. And obviously he's got that win. Let's look at 2021 real quick and recap Bollins' year and see if there's anything I need to learn about him. Let's look at the 33 races from last season for Brad Keselowski and look and see what stands out. Really want to look at laps led. Remember, there was a new practice last season. Finished second at Las Vegas. Brad Keselowski has always been strong at Las Vegas. Brad Keselowski won the 2018 race at Las Vegas, but Bollins wasn't his crew chief. The only constant there is Brad Keselowski. Penske's been pretty strong too. They have short run speed. I could see that working out for them. I mean, I would definitely consider Cindric if he's going to be priced low because people just don't respect him yet, and we get chaos and wrecks at the end of the Las Vegas race, and they've built in short run speed, which is what I would do if I'm Jeremy Bollins and I'm building for Austin Cindric and I'm trying to gamble and figure out how do we win this race. Austin Cindric is not going to win at Las Vegas or any intermediate track for that matter based on long run speed. It's just not going to happen. He's not going to beat Martin Truex Jr. on the long run at most intermediate tracks or even short tracks. He's not going to beat Larson that way. The way that Austin Cindric can compete for wins or top fives is by building a car based on short run speed and hoping there's cautions late in the race, which with a new package, I could definitely see happening. So I would keep my eyes on that. That might be a trend to look for moving forward. Atlanta, he suffered damage at that race. Let's see. Anything else where he's leading laps? He led 25 laps at Richmond. That's not terrible. Kansas led 48 laps. Finished third. Not bad. But, I mean, overall, these are some pretty disappointing races. And Keselowski was not running very well. I don't really care about Pocono. That could mean it means almost nothing to me. There's a third place finish, 53 laps led at Loudon. It seems that Bollins is having a pretty good job setting up these, well, not just at the short flat tracks, but remember, high horsepower, low downforce seems to be one of his strengths, or at least they have a pretty good notebook. Maybe with practice, they can build that notebook. Darlington, 7th place, 30 laps led. Remember, Darlington was high horsepower, low downforce. Richmond, not nearly as good as the year before, but decent. Again, you can see Keselowski is not quite the driver that he was from before. Another decent race here at Las Vegas. That is laps led, isn't it? That's points. Sorry. Laps led. Good grief. So 72 laps led at Kansas, 25 at Richmond, 53 at Loudon. Let me see what else. It closes the season out pretty strong, though. 7th at Darlington, 6th at Bristol, 7th at Vegas. I don't really care about the 2nd at Talladega, 4th at Fort Worth or Texas, 3rd at Martinsville, 10th at Phoenix, although that's kind of disappointing for Brad Keselowski, but he wasn't in the championship. All right, who are we going to next? I didn't mean to close that. We're going to go to Austin Dillon and Justin Alexander. I always get Justin Alexander and Adam Stevens mixed up. It's just something that I can't help myself with. I don't know why. I think I know why. I think it's because Justin Alexander, there's some connection between the two. And we will find that out here in a second. Again, if this podcast is boring, racefortheprize.com, that's where you can get access to patreon.com/BrandonCruzDFS, and you can go through the spreadsheet yourself, even though this isn't in the spreadsheet. I'm doing this for myself. This is homework for myself. I apologize. So Alexander started in 2014, a couple seasons with Menard, a couple seasons with Austin Dillon, then worked a little bit with Ty Dillon, Hemrick, and Tyler Reddick as part-time 2019. Then reunites with Austin Dillon. You remember Austin Dillon kept going back and forth with crew chiefs. Did Casgrala when he was subbing for COVID Dillon. Back to Dillon. What's he done? Xfinity Series. Some races way back when with Jimmy Johnson, Austin Dillon, Sam Hornish, Michael McDowell. Imagine those are road courses. Imagine that's a plate track win. Let's see his Xfinity wins real quick. I bet it's a plate track and a road course. Yes, McDowell and Justin Alexander won at Road America, and Austin Dillon won at Bristol, but he only led 4 laps in that race in 2016. I imagine it was filled with some chaos. Right, let's go back to the Cup. You know the wins. Austin Dillon 2017 Daytona 500, 2018 Coca-Cola 600, and 2020 Texas. All goofy wins. Obviously Daytona 500 is Daytona 500. The Charlotte race, fuel mileage, and then they played games on pit road, and they won the 2020 Texas race because tire wear wasn't an issue. That was all set up by the Quinn Houff wreck. Ryan Blaney was going to run away with that race. Quinn Houff tries to pit and causes a major wreck. And so there's your cautions, and that opens the door for Austin Dillon to gamble on pit road, and they use their computer program, their artificial intelligence, and it says, take 2 tires, blah, 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 and they win the race, and Tyler Reddick finished second in that race. Other than that, Justin Alexander wasn't great. They brought him back, whatever. They won 2 races and fired him, and then they brought him back, and they won again. Not a lot of top 5s here, not a lot of top 10s. Not a lot to get excited about. I don't even know what to look at for two things. All right, so let's look at last year. First thing I want to look at is last year and just see. He's 8 top 10s. Maybe they're in the low downforce, high horsepower package. Let's see. Nope. So Daytona, there's 1 top 10. Atlanta, there's another top 10. Richmond, yes. Richmond clicked with Austin Dillon 2 seasons ago, and he's been pretty strong here after it being one of his worst tracks. Talladega, that doesn't help. Kansas, that doesn't help. So far, 4 of the 5 top 10s have been in the 550 package with high downforce. Charlotte, 6th. That doesn't help. So 6 of them so far. And Darlington, yes. That's not bad. We'll take that. Richmond, 11th. Not terrible. 10th at Kansas, that doesn't really help. He was a 15th place car. That's about what you would expect from Austin Dillon, and he has regressed a little bit. It looked like at the end of the 2020 season, Austin Dillon was definitely going to go back to taking a step forward, and then you see 2021, he kind of settles back into being a 15th place driver. Maybe you give Austin Dillon some practice time. Maybe that will help him improve, but practice time is going to help everybody else as well. We shall see. The other thing I want to look at is the closest thing. 2016, 17, and 18, these are higher horsepower, lower downforce. The maximum is 2018, but if you want the closest package, it would be 2016, where we have the closest spoiler in terms of downforce. Now, there's other factors in downforce. I don't want to just put everything on the spoiler. There's so many other parts of the car, but I am focused probably too much on the spoiler, and so that is what we'll look at. In 2016, you have a 3.75-inch spoiler and around 700 to 725 horsepower, not too far away from what we're going to see in the next-gen model. And we got Paul Menard running basically in the teens all season and doesn't do much. That does not do much for me either. All right. So we slowly grind along here. Next on our list is Rodney Childers. I don't really think we need to look at Rodney Childers. We all know him. But what I will look at is I want to look at Rodney Childers last time we were in low downforce. We know Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick struggled last season. Getting back to practice might help. It might not help. Remains to be seen. But what I want to look at here in the Fantasy NASCAR podcast 498 is let's look back at 2018. Let's look back at 2017 and 16. The last times that we had less downforce. The last time that we had a little bit more horsepower. And you'll see that 8 wins in 2018. 2 wins in 2017. 4 wins in 2016. It's hard to top that 2020 season, but they had a huge advantage with the way COVID was and not practicing and always starting towards the front and being able to trim out their car more. I don't really want to go into that. It was a great season, whatever. But a more legit season, a more real season with less variables and nonsense is that 2018 season. He had 8 wins, 21 top fives. He was an absolute monster. Let's look and see what Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick cooked up in that high horsepower, low downforce season. We could see that come back. We don't know. He won at Atlanta. He won at Las Vegas. He won at Phoenix. I mean, an absolute tear to start the season. 181 laps led at Atlanta. 214 laps led at Las Vegas. 38 laps led at Phoenix. One thing that we could see come back. We haven't really talked much about this. But Phoenix used to be Kevin Harvick's playground. The desert, he was the desert king. Now, Childers would admit, like, when they changed the tire, that he lost a lot of his dominance. But even after Childers had made that statement and that revelation, they still earned wins. They just weren't as dominant. Well, going back to this package, even though we kind of already had this package, actually, this is less of a package. Last year at Phoenix, we had low downforce. The year before that at Phoenix, we had lower downforce, and we had more horsepower. So maybe I'm reading too much into that. Maybe we're not going to get the resurgence of Kevin Harvick at Phoenix. Tons of top 10s here, and then he goes back and wins at Dover, leads 200 laps, wins at Kansas, leads 79 laps, wins at Loudon. These are some of the short tracks where he's having success, and the short tracks litter the 2022 schedule. Pretty good. There are reasons to be excited about Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick. Let's look at that 2016 season real quick and see where specifically they were really good. Because as I mentioned before, 2016, a little closer in package. Win at Phoenix, 139 laps led. So we add a little bit more downforce into 2016. Maybe he's going to be a real threat here. Hard to know for sure. What did he do in the second Phoenix race? 4th, not as good. Finishes 3rd at Homestead in 2016. Won at Kansas. Won at Loudon, another short flat track. Leads 44 laps. Loudon is, if I remember correctly, one of Rodney Childers' best tracks. I believe he almost won with, or no, maybe he did win with Brian Vickers at Loudon once upon a time. I'm going to double check that. The short flat tracks seem to be Rodney Childers' strength. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure Brian Vickers, here's that win, was at New Hampshire ages ago for Michael Waltrip Racing. Brian Vickers, there it was, Loudon. Only led 16 laps, but it's all up here, folks. You got to do your homework, got to do your research, and you got to know these things, remember these things, and you get good at these things. That's going to do it for episode 1. We didn't make it very far. I can't keep going on forever, but we will pick up where we left off. We made it through 4 drivers. Wow. It's going to take a while. Get your popcorn. Get your notes ready. We'll do our best. As always, please go to racefortheprize.com. That's the hub for all your fantasy NASCAR information. Hit that like button right now. If you want to leave a comment, I always respond to the comments, even the negative ones, or even, it's not really negative. I take feedback. There's things that I can do better. Maybe you have a suggestion about how I should do this Crew Chief podcast moving forward. Throw it out there. Shoot it at me. I will do my best to make this content better, as always. And remember, on here at the hub, you can find all the different platforms where you can find the podcast: iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play, Amazon Music. You can find me on Twitter at Race for the Prize. At Podcast NASCAR is another one of my Twitter handles to help push out information. You can find Brandon Cruz. I believe it's at Brandon Cruz DFS. Patreon.com/Brandon Cruz. And then, as always, if you want to get weird, there's the Constrained Vision. If you want to check it out, have some fun or not have fun, it's not for everybody. and it may make you hate me. That's fine. If you don't hate me, then I'm not doing my job correctly. What is my job anyway? Any last tidbits that I want to share? No, I will see you in 499. We will continue to talk crew chiefs. Please support this podcast. Please support the Fantasy NASCAR Spreadsheet in any way that you can. Hitting retweet, hitting like, any of those small little things, all of that adds up. All of that helps. All of those things help pay the bills. Appreciate it, guys. I will see you soon. Let's trip the lights fantastic. Well, almost did. As I tried to look cool looking into the screen. I'm supposed to hit stop on the recording thing, and I almost hit delete. Don't try to look cool. Try to look goofy.